welcome to Nuria's Mastermind podcast. I am so excited to have Erica and Heber, or Heber is what I call him, because he's, it's my native language. But I'm so excited to have you guys here today for this episode.
We're excited.
Yes. This is fun.
I love that Erica started making noises right away. Like, I could feel her excitement.
I get to talk with adults today. Nobody's like throwing stuff. I'm 3/4 mom, 1/4 business.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Although you probably spend a lot more time on the business, let's be honest too. Like,
Maybe.
You're like superwoman. It's seriously a delight to have you both here. I've gotten to know the both of you a little bit more just in the recent last few months. And I met Heber, well, I'm like combining it now. Heber, Heber, like both languages. I met Heber at a Core Revive class in the middle of the summer, and he brought over his tastings of what your business is, which is this chef, business, this food business. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? And then he started telling me a little bit about it. And obviously we're going to get more into it, but I just connected with you right away. Obviously we both are Mexican. We have that background. We started speaking to each other in Spanish, and it just always makes me so proud of anyone that can share a similar story to mine, of them really like taking advantage of this American dream and creating something with it. And I was just like, yes, I'm proud of my people. I'm proud of you. And at the same time, it was a blessing in my life because I really have always wanted to have a chef. And this was like a great way to actually have a chef without having to pay this outrageous price, but eat healthier and eat cleaner. And it was like, I was definitely sent by the universe into my life. And then after that, and feel free to add things if I'm missing something.
The only thing that I remember, at least for me, is that when you told me, oh, I'm moving from LA, and I was like, we gotta be friends.
We have to be best friends.
Yeah,
well, and I remember about Nuria, you told me about her when you met her first couple of weeks, because you went in and you took the food into her house and you saw like an Abraham Hicks book or something like that, like Law of Attraction, wasn't it? Something like that. And I was like, we have to be friends with her. I already love her.
That is.
And then we
so
found out, and then I
cool.
found out we had the same last name, and I was like, we're cousins.
We're
this is
really
great.
family.
We
For real.
really are.
I do remember that because you messaged me and said, hey, that's, I think you're like, come over for dinner. You're like,
immediately.
Yes. You're like, hey, you're listening to, or you're reading Abraham Hicks. Esther, and what's her husband's name? Jerry Hicks. And so I love anyone that's always into the same stuff I am. And for the listeners who have not heard of Jerry and Esther Hicks, this is a great opportunity for you to Google them and research, YouTube them, because, and I know it sounds a little bit odd, but Esther can channel really spirit guides she names them Abraham. Yeah. And the information that she can channel, and when you're listening to her, it's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're like, this is definitely channeling. And so
well, just
we
because you feel like
recommend
it's such truth. And so it's so nice to be able to share that with other people, that it's like, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe on so many other levels, like we can get down to the core root of our humanity together and we can share that. And so I really like that. Yeah. It's just it's basic. There's no frills, but it's like, it's true, I guess.
That is seriously the most beautiful way to describe it. It's like, you just feel the truth in it. So it's like, you don't, and it might not be true for some, but when you do it, and then you can have that connection with some other people, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Amen. So that's how I knew about you. And then we knew that you have a French bulldog, right?
Yeah, I have a Frenchie. His name is Blue.
That's right, Blue. And our son is in love with French bulldogs. And so he's still like, he'll still be like, when's Nudia coming over?
I got to meet one of your sons.
That's right.
Yeah.
The other one we put to bed early.
So then we were, texting back and forth, and he's like, hey, we would love to have you over for dinner. And so I was able to go to your house and met the wonderful Erica. And to my surprise, she knew how to speak Spanish as well. And, it was so beautiful to watch you guys, your guys' relationship, and how, although you've been through a lot of changes in life and you've been together for a long time, that the way that you have both grown and changed has been in alignment
Mhm.
and how powerful that is. Because I know relationships aren't easy. I've had my messes in relationships. We will not get into that today. But yeah, I could just sense that huge connectivity in that change, that you're still growing together.
Mhm.
And that was like my big impression of that night, and just how hungry the both of you are for like self-development and learning. And we could totally relate on
Mhm.
that too.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is like this doing the business and everything like that. It's part of our relationship. It's part of our co-creating. And like, we want to bring other people a great product, but part of it is just getting to know ourselves on a deeper level too. Like, how do we provide something that we find a value and that it can be a value for other people, I think is what has been really good for us. Like when we decided to like jump off the corporate boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we get into that? Like, why don't you guys share with us the story of how this all begun?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Everyone do your own
This is so
tagline.
fun. I love this. I love this episode.
So I had a job.
Yay, great.
It was a really good job. I was making good money. And I was able to have basically my own schedule, but it was not very fulfilling, we can say. And I've always thought about owning my own business. That's always that I've always had since I was a kid.
Well, even from the get-go, when I met you, I knew that at some point there would be some sort of restaurant in our life, like some sort of food something, which is actually part of the thing that I was like, I love this. It just sounds kind of fun to marry him. So I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know you. We had dated for like 2 months and I was like, okay, sounds fun. Let's do that. Let's get married.
I love it. That's all you needed.
Yeah, right. Simple. Anyway, sorry, I was interrupting. Go ahead.
So everything in our lives has always been like quick changes. And it's good because there's not a lot of time to think and then to.
Well, I feel like if we deliberate about it, it's kind of like putters out.
Yeah.
Just like,
and so I had my job, and then 1 week we decided, well, let's just give it a shot and see what happens. And I put my 2 weeks notice, and then
I feel like we should also intensify the story a little bit by telling them that I was pregnant at
Oh,
the
yeah.
time with baby 2. And so like, there's
That's
always
a big
like,
risk.
well,
Yeah.
yeah. And you're like, what about insurance? What about all this stuff? And
Yeah.
so part of it was like, I always think of I don't know if you've seen Indiana Jones, but there's a part where he's like trying to cross this big like canyon, and he like throws some sand on there, and he realized that there is a floor that he can like walk on. I don't know if you've seen that part. Anyway, so we felt like at first we were like jumping off something, but really the path has always been there. So
wow,
I
amazing.
felt like when we first did it, it was like, okay, so I'm going to have your baby, and we're just like not going to have any money. Like these thoughts that are horrible start coming. And then we just started being like, well, why don't we figure out, we still have time. And so he quit, and we figured out how to pay cash for everything and have the baby. And I wanted to have the baby naturally anyway. And so like that
You're
all
a
worked
brave
out.
woman.
Oh man. All right.
My mom had us all 3 natural, and
That's awesome.
wow, I can't even. That's strength. That is real strength.
Well, it's really empowering. But anyway, I mean, like there was motivation behind it too. I was like, I don't want to pay for an epidural. But yeah, anyway, so it was just kind of like, we thought that we were jumping off of something huge, but really it's that we've always had something underneath us, like a good foundation.
And I think something that I can say is that there's this idea that we need to have a lot of money to start a business, and you need to be prepared. I remember my growing up, some friends would tell me, well, you need to have at least 6 months in the bank before you save up before you start your business.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I was like, how am I going to get 6 months?
Because we had just barely bought a house. Yeah. And we had just barely bought a house too.
We bought a house, and Erica was pregnant, and there was a lot going on. And to add to that, we're like, well, let's start a business.
But I think it worked for us because that's kind of how our decisions are. It's just like, you just like launch the airplane and they're like, oh, we don't have any wings, like we forgot those, but we're still here flying in our airplane.
Yeah, it sounds like your risk tolerance is similar to each other's.
Yeah, well,
But-
Heber's is higher than mine is for sure, but
Mm.
I have learned to kind of throw caution to the wind a little bit more.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I remember something that Tony Robbins, I'm a very big follower of the man, the myth, the legend, Tony. And
Yes.
I hope you're listening, Tony.
He listens to my podcast. There you go.
Hashtag Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
So something that he said is like, if it's not about resources, you don't have to be you don't have to have the resources, you have to be resourceful. So that's something that I learned, that I was like, well, I don't have the resources right now, but I know one or two people that can help me to get connected to someone else and someone else and someone else.
Which I think we should give an example of that, right? So we had like a couple $1,000s that
Yeah.
would last us approximately 2 months, I
Yeah.
think, of just like basic living.
Uh-huh.
And so as far as resourceful, you knew a guy that could lend you some space in his kitchen to do it.
Mhm.
You had to cook on a camp stove.
Yeah.
So he was cooking.
Oh, so that's
He's
where
like
it
pan
started.
frying
Yeah.
on a camp stove stuff,
That's
and then because
interesting.
it was like a different type of kitchen, and so
Uh-huh.
like they didn't have the same equipment that we had.
Just
But it
one
was a
single
space
burner.
to be in.
And this is the other thing, because a lot of people ask us, so you do this out of your house? We're like, no, you have to have, or at least for us, we know some people who do it out of their homes, but for us, we wanted to stay as close as we could to the rules, basically, and we decided to go for the commercial space. So I had a friend who had a commercial kitchen. He would allow me to do my business on the weekends when they were not there, but it was an adventure.
Oh, and we also had one car. Yeah.
And we
So
also-
that-
Oh, wow.
So we went down to one car. What else did we do? And I was working at the time. I taught at a local college, and so like I finished that off, and then we
Because
just
what's your background like?
communications. So I taught
Communications.
mass communications, at BYU, and then because the baby was coming and stuff, so I just finished out the
Mhm.
semester, and then it was just like on and off to the business, which was fun. Like I loved that time there, but I think the business is really fun too, seeing something grow that you kind of planted rather than like taking care of someone else's garden. So
Yeah.
it's been fun, but other things that we had as being resourceful, like we would trade people stuff as far as like, hey, can you help me? I need some time. Like if you can help me work, or if you can help deliver. One thing that was interesting though when we started is that we just kind of figured that we would launch, and then it just like everyone would buy our product, and like that there would be no refining process. We're just like, we're gonna have thousands of orders this week, and we didn't market it to anybody. We just like texted it on texted people and then put it on Facebook. And so that's something that we learned too, is like getting it into the right hands. Sometimes you need to
Yes.
find those people, because it's not like they're not just going to be all your best friends.
It's
They're
not
gonna be ordering.
automatically. It doesn't
Yeah.
automatically happen. I love that you're bringing that up, because I think that there is that huge misconception in the entrepreneur
Yes.
world where it's like, oh, I have a great product. I'm obsessed with my product, which we should be. Like, of
Yeah.
course, we have to have the full certainty we believe in it.
Yeah.
But then it's not just because you created it, it's going to sell itself. There's all that other side of the work that you have to
Yes.
do, which is the selling, the marketing, the branding, that whole part, which is a lot, I'm sure, of where the growth
Yeah.
came in
Yeah.
this strategy, right? Like you coming to the core revive and like having everyone taste it, and then people, and then, I mean, now, and I don't want to jump ahead, we can obviously come back to where you left it, but now seeing the compound effect of all of that work and that painful part,
Yeah.
you know, now I'm in, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing that it's like super thriving, and you've created this remarkable business that just keeps exploding.
Yeah. Well, I think it was part of it getting our niche down. We just kind of like figured we would just like launch it into the world and everyone would buy these meals.
Yeah.
And then we realized after that there were a couple different niches that were actually going to work. And then sometimes now we can even just like look at people. If we know a couple things about them, we can tell like, this is going to work for you, or this is not going to work for you. And which is great, because, you know, it's like a first date that you're like, what are you into? Great. We're going to break up. Or like, that was our first date.
Yeah,
That was
you
our
can't
last
go
date.
after everyone. That just
Yeah.
doesn't.
Well, and
work.
that's kind of
Yeah.
what we tried
Yeah.
doing at first a little bit. Like I love this. We had a guy that he was like, he owned a business in kind of bias, and he tried the meals and he's like, no, they're way too healthy. Fast forward 2 years, he's buying the meals again. So like he was like, no, they're way too healthy. I'm not going to buy these things. But as things evolve, as people evolve, and then you're like, oh, that is something that I really did want. And so he started
Perhaps
buying
their
meals
values change, their goals change. They're like, actually, I do want that.
Right. Yeah. So it's funny, but
also the recipes change because with time, with the changes that we've made, we've been able to add that healthiness to or freshness to the meals, but also the flavor of them and keeping it like a high quality, but also healthy. Where at the beginning, we didn't know exactly how to marry those two components because we were like, well, we want people to eat more plants. And so we were just making food the way we understood it for our family, but it wasn't very much of how the client would see it. And so once we made that change, we were able to.
Once you found their need, it changed. That is so good. I hope that, I mean, a lot of our listeners are in business. And so there are so many good nuggets in this story right now. Just even what you just said of like, we created something based upon what worked for us and our family and for the health benefits. But then our audience was not that they weren't about that, but they were wanting something different and you found it. Is that when things shifted for you?
Yeah, basically. And that's when we started seeing more of okay, so this is how we want to do it. And also at the beginning of the first year of the business, there was a lot that we were still trying to figure out, this is what I want to do, because we did it and it wasn't really working the way we wanted to work. And so I started doing more of just caterings for businesses. And that was working really well. So the meal prep, I didn't pay attention to the meal prep at all. And then I was doing some consulting overseas and helping people open restaurants in the Caribbean. And that was very fun and exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Did you get to go?
No, because I just have babies.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, I had just had the baby, to be fair. Right. I had the baby and he was like, okay, so you're good. And I'm going to go for a couple of weeks to Belize in the dead of winter. So sure, you're okay. I was like, it'll be fine. Yeah. So no resentment
cool
at all.
opportunity though.
Yeah, it was fun, but it was a lot of the time. And I think the meal prep business, we were not 100% committed to just that business.
Well, and I guess pause for a second there, because I think that shows like the power of our thoughts in it, because we have a thought that's like, I don't know if this is working out. And so the confidence that we're putting in it is not as much either. That's like, this might not work out. So the meals, we're not doing 100% of what we could in the meals either. And just the intention behind things. Like somehow, we can tell as humans that we're like, Anyway, so we were like half doing this, half doing the consulting, half doing catering. Who was like, we just have to do everything. This just has to work. And it was more, I think that we had a couple of months of like, this just has to work desperation rather than finding the real path that was sustainable. Yeah, I think.
And I think I can say that because of there were too many things, there were too many buckets. I wasn't able to really take care of my clients the way I'm taking care of them right now.
That's so powerful.
Yeah. So I lost a bunch of clients because I wasn't really committed to them. And because I was doing the consulting and I was traveling a lot and
yeah, it was almost like, when you give kids just candy, because you're like, please be quiet. Here's your food. So here's your meals every week, but there wasn't as much attention to it.
And so it wasn't until COVID hit that we needed to pivot and make a decision.
That was interesting too, because this was last January. And so Heber had just landed a couple of clients that were like 800 people person caterings, which is great. I mean, that brings in a lot of money, and you don't have a huge overhead like you do with meal prep, because you can just kind of like make all the meals at once. It's during the day, and it's just easier, and you get 800 clients, but that's based on one person booking. And so if you lose that one client that's attached to these 800 clients, that's why we realized it's better to have these individual clients and work with individuals than this is giant caterings. Yeah. So, and we realized that the hard way, because we booked all these, and then like the next, like a week or a couple months after, no, it was like a month after that was when COVID hit, and everyone got shut down. And we were doing most caterings and we were doing most caterings also in the tech industry, and they still haven't returned. So, I mean, like, imagine if we had just been like waiting around for them, we still wouldn't be working. So it was good that we had the other meal prep going on anyway. It was just kind of like finding those old shoes in your closet. You're like, oh, I love these.
Oh, I have the shoes.
You're like, oh my gosh, these are so good.
They still fit me.
Yeah. And then we're like, oh, maybe I should wear them. Maybe I should go running or something.
Right. And so that's what we did.
Yeah. As long as we shoot sparkle.
Yeah.
So we, during COVID, we make that decision where this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to grow, and this is that we're committed. And that's when we really started taking care of the clients the way we would like it to be. And
we understood better our niche too.
Yeah.
Because we understand, we understood ourselves better. There was some self-development too, with just individually, I think too, as far as like who we want to surround ourselves with too, and the friends that we want to find, and people that are also business minded and that understand that type of thing. So that was really fun. I think that whole year was a huge leap for us to just kind of try to find even more where we wanted to be personally. And that took us where we wanted to be with our business too. Yeah. Which is interesting, because you think they would be mutually exclusive, but when we put time into ourselves, into our own self-development, then we were able to find where we wanted to go.
Yeah.
And how amazing that every area like really does impact each other.
Yeah, which we don't think of. I think we're just like, I'm just going to run this business. But really the most important part is figuring out where I am. Do I know where I'm running, and am I aligned? So, and then after that, it was, because I mean, along those lines, we also got into like life coaching.
Because you do some of that, Erica, don't you?
Yeah, so I joined a life coaching. I'd hit rock bottom with some family relationships, and so I was just like, I need something that propels me forward, because I had felt like through like therapy, I was still kind of in the back, and so I was like, I just want to move forward. And so I started dabbling in life coaching, and that helped me correct myself and kind of more align myself. And then I saw it really help our relationship too between us, because our communication was better. I could, rather than just be like, make me feel better, Heber, I realized that I was in control of that. And then, so now I am doing life coach training myself to be a life coach, because I thought that I was like, I need more in my life. So that was really good. But the first step was just using it as our own medicine. And that, I think part of that was the alignment of all that was 2019 and 2020.
Yeah. 2019, 2020.
Yeah. So those were like, just a lot of personal growth had to happen for us to even know what we wanted.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I want something different, and you don't even know what it is. So you're just kind of searching for it, and then you find it in yourself again.
Yeah,
You're
that's
right
so
back in the same
good,
place.
right? Like it was like you were seeking it from someone outside of you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, it's always inside of you. And that's when everyone talks about that. And I think a lot of times we hear something, but we don't get it. It doesn't click.
Yeah.
And then we have those moments that you've heard it for the 100th time, and you're like, and it clicks.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is what they're talking about, right? That everything is within me, that I do have all the answers within me, that love comes from the inside out and things like that. And so how cool that you knew you needed to do something different, because, and I think you may have posted this maybe a couple of days ago, Heber, that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again.
And expecting it to change.
Yeah. And so the fact that you recognize that, and you're like, no, I need to try something different here, and how it really helped transform you from the inside out. Therefore, again, the compound effect of having it affect your relationship in a good way. And then Heber, noticing the change in you, and then he's changing, like how beautiful the world
and
it
I even
created.
see this now you bring it up, because I even see, like, as we were able to define more our niche in our business, we also define more our niche of who we were too. So it was defining, and I feel like some people do this at age 15, but we chose 30 to do this.
It's okay. It doesn't
I
even
know, I'm
matter.
like, it's fine. Maybe
It's
we'll do it again
fine.
at 65.
You can do it at 80 as well.
But which is fine. But it was kind of almost separating ourselves from who we thought we were, and our families of origin, which are great and we love them. But I think sometimes we just thought that we were that group rather than who really am I? What do I really like? And really sitting with those questions that sometimes are kind of scary to ask, because you don't want to be like, well, I'm a serial killer. That's who I am. I was kind of afraid sometimes to ask those questions, just to be like, I don't know what I really want to be. And so I think that as we defined more of who we were, then we found the right niche, because we were able to, we just had more power going in that right direction. So it was good.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
So you tell us a little bit of where you are now.
We are in American Fork.
In the business.
I taught him his punny ways, you guys. When we got married, he didn't even know what a pun was, so you're welcome.
But yeah, it's been a really good transition. And right now, so when we started, we were doing about, it's still very, very, not very far. What am I trying to say?
I don't know.
It's still a few months ago. We're still just doing about 150 to 250 meals a week. And now we're close to 1,000 a week. So
whoa,
it's been really
amazing.
It's been a really good adventure.
Well, we were talking about it coming here too, is like, I think before sometimes we were running away from bills. So, I don't want to pay for this thing, so I have to work, rather than running to what we do want. Like, I want a business with this many. So rather than I'm just going to make these meals so we make this much money, it's more setting in goals and intentions that we actually wanted. Because that, I feel like over the summer is kind of when that started changing, rather than like, we have to pay all of these bills. It was like, what kind of business do I want? What kind of people do I want to provide this to? And it was a way better vibe that I think that we were putting off even for ourselves.
Well, because it shifted it from like a fear mindset
Right.
to the abundance, the scarcity
what
to like,
goodness
what
am
do
I
we
providing?
want?
Yeah.
And we hit a point where last year where we needed some extra cash for our business to help it with the growth. So we're like, where do we go? Because we had some credit cards that we already used. And so the house market was super good. So we just decided to sell our house. Mm-hmm. So we sold our house, and with that money, we put it to help with the business. And that's because we had to make a decision. Do I have to go back and get a job, or is there a way that we can do to help the business to stay afloat? And we did, and it's been great.
And I think it always goes back to those moments that you think that that you're not walking on solid ground, but then you realize that it has been there the whole time.
Like the universe does have your back.
Yeah.
Like that you're being led into something great. And we're all huge Tony Robbins fans, and he always talks about the fact that like life will support more of what supports life. And here you are with a huge purpose in your business, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're helping other people become healthier and provide a service that, so many people need and want. And you're supporting more of life. So of course life is going to support you.
So say that again, that phrase.
Life.
Okay, hold on, guys. Now get a pen, a piece of paper, and write it down.
Or just your tattoo pen.
Yeah, write it down.
Get a tattoo.
Get a tattoo of this, but spell it right.
Okay, they're ready, Nodia. Okay.
Life supports more of what supports life.
Love it. It's and make
That's
like in a
deep.
circle,
That's
right?
deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and it's so true. It's like, I mean, I can relate in my business. Sometimes I've been like, there's been some major challenges and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
And I tell my team all the time, like, the universe really has my back. Like, God really loves me, because I don't even know how sometimes miracles happen.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you do have a purpose, a why, and you have these really great intentions on how to help life and people, like it's gonna come back to you, and it's so
Yeah.
beautiful, you know?
Well, and that was something that I think there's a couple different quotes that Abraham Hicks has that have been really good mantras for like crazy weeks. One is things are always working out for me. I love that one. That's just
Yeah.
like things are just always working out for me. Even if, you know, like I just crashed my car, I'm like, things are always working out for me. I don't know how we're gonna figure this out, but they're always working out for me.
Yeah.
And then another one that I was trying to remember the other one. I think I forgot it. Never mind. It'll come to me when you're talking. Like, wait,
Okay.
this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just like those mantras.
Yeah. And staying still, and like in those hard moments of your thoughts, right? Checking your thoughts all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I can't go down this rabbit hole. Like, what is the beauty in this? And really trusting in life that it really does have my back. Life happens for me, not to me, right? We hear
Right.
that often from these great teachers. Life is happening for us, not to us. And so there's a huge trust in entrepreneurship, but and again, Tony says this, like, it's a spiritual game, and how everything aligns with each other. And I feel like the three of us are on a similar path with spirituality and also entrepreneurship and some of this self-development side as well. But like, once you're able to connect all these dots, you really start understanding life in like a totally different way. Like, your optics of everything are like, whoa, everything does like affect each other. Everything is in alignment with each other. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Like it, and at the end of the day, yeah, it is all like this game, and it's a spiritual one, and how amazing
Yeah.
and fun life is.
Well, and
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that it's just supposed to be fun. One thing we were talking about when we were coming over here was actually the law of attraction versus the law of assertion. And that sometimes we live in a world that we think that it's a law of assertion, that we just have to work really hard and then we get what we want. And rather than, you have to set your intention more than anything, and things flow, and it doesn't have to be hard. And I think that's part of like where we get with our business. There are days that we do put in a lot of hours, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Part of it is just figuring it out, like, oh, I didn't want that. Well, good thing I tried that way, and I'm going to try a different way.
Yeah.
Because I don't love working 24 hours, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it's just the laboratory of life, and we're just kind of figuring it out and figuring ourselves out. But it doesn't mean it was wrong. And it doesn't mean it's like the worst.
And I think part of the key with what you say, Nuria, is getting to the point where you can connect the dots and understand those dots that are being connected. Because what I've seen is that most of the times when we want to make a decision is based on the past, based on something that we have already gone through. And the hardest part is making a decision based on the future, because that's the unknown. That's something that we don't know. But like you said, we have to expect the miracle that will happen. And it does happen, and they do come. But you have to be aligned so that can happen.
Well, I love the example too of like, a lot of times we make decisions. It's like we're driving a car, but we're driving looking in through the rear view mirror. So we're like trying to drive forward, but we're
so good.
looking in the rear view mirror because we're just basing it on anything that's happened before, rather than looking at what's before us. Where do I want to go? Because I really can't decide that. And so I think we do a lot of that, and we forget that we really do have a lot of control about where we are, or at least what, you know, where I am right now. Am I safe? Am I good? Now what do I want to do?
That's so good. Like, if anyone, if you guys just get this concept out of this episode, that will change your life, right? Because like exactly what you're saying, just like that, everything from the past we keep bringing on to the now, and then becomes the future. But just like how we can have a memory of the past, we have our imagination and our creativity. And you are able to imagine things for the future, and you are able to envision things that have not yet happened. But that is how the law of attraction works. It's like you can imagine and envision something you really desire, not from the past, right? Like you create it, you imagine that looking forward, and it really is magical.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's been something good. So we have 2 boys. That's one is 5 and one is 2. And that's been something really good about having kids again in our lives, because like we forget how to be kids, right? Like we grow up and then we have kids again and they just imagine everything. Like our son Santi, he's 5. And so he'll just be like playing with these things. It's just like a button, you know, or whatever, like random things that he finds in like a fork. And he'll be like, this is a broomstick and it's doing this thing. And to him, all of that is real. There's no difference between what is real and what he's imagining, because it's all just amazing. And that's something that, and he gets so excited about stuff. And so like, that's something that we've learned too, is like, why don't I get excited about things that I really like? Why don't I just imagine stuff? Because I personally feel like I just like shoved it down so much, because I was like, that's not being realistic. And what is realistic? Just like judging everything by the past of what happened yesterday. Is that being realistic? I don't know. You know, it doesn't make any sense though, because why would I have an imagination anyway? Why would I?
Yeah, I feel like society really suppresses that. You know, you're growing up and you're like, I mean, if you think about it, and you were imagining as a child and someone would come in and say, oh no, you know, what did you want to be? This is an example. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
I want to be an artist. Oh, honey, that's fun, but that's not a real job.
Yeah.
You know, or like, oh, you're not going to make a living out of that. And it's like, they crush your dreams and your imagination. And so, and they're only repeating what they learned, right? So it's just a program.
Yes.
But it's like, we have the freedom and the power to disrupt those programs. Like we're able to now like change something and stop those patterns, right? Like your kids are not going to have the same programming that has been going on for generations, because you guys have chosen to let them imagine, let them be creative, right? But I'm like, I feel that like the whole universe is, well, the whole world is shifting a little bit more into that conscious level, which is exciting.
We didn't come to this world to be reacting, but we came to be creating. So if we can create and help others to be in that state, then bingo. That's what you need.
Well, I think something else that we've learned being in business is that, at least growing up, I was very academic, and so everything was competition, right? Like I wanted to get the highest grades in the class, and you only know if you got the highest grades if you got better than everybody else. And rather than it being a world of competition, the only thing I'm doing is just becoming a better version of myself. Doesn't matter at all what somebody else is doing. And so that's something that we've learned. And there are other people that are in a similar space to us, but the business we're growing is ours. The people that we're growing, it's us. And I have no control over anybody else. And so I think that's part of it, is just kind of like sealing those gaps of like, sometimes we have, it's like, you know, have you heard of leaky gut, where people like can't assimilate stuff into their gut? It's like, it just kind of like goes out of their intestines. We do that sometimes, like personally. I feel like, and now you know that. And for a commercial break. Anyway.
And here comes our sponsor.
Here comes our sponsor. But we do the same thing with our emotions and with our lives. Like I'm expecting you to patch in that emotional problem that I have, rather than I am the complete picture. I am whole. I am all of that inside of me, but I have to access it. And anyway, so I think.
Ooh, this is getting so good. I'm so proud of you guys, and it's so fun I love watching people succeed, and I feel like you're only getting started. I do want to touch a little bit on, because I don't even know this in details, is like, Heber, you migrating to the United States. Can you share a little bit of that part?
Yeah. So it's a long story. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
So let's see. There are two stages of me migrating to the US. The first one was in 2007, when I have to say I served as a missionary for the LDS Church. And one of my friends that I made, is still a really good friend, he was getting married. So he invited me to the wedding. I was in Mexico working for JW Marriott. And I was like, I was at a point in my life when I was looking just for something else. Like I didn't know what it was, but I was like, you just feel it. It's just like how um, I need to, I need progress, and I just can't find it here.
Mhm.
And so my friend sends me the invitation, and I called another friend, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Utah?" He's like, "Utah? Yeah." He's like, "Sure." So,
I love that. He was like, yeah, whatever.
yeah, let's go. So we got a ticket from Monterey to San Antonio, Texas. And when we got to San Antonio, we rented a van and we just started driving. And we drove all the way to Utah, and the wedding was in Idaho Falls. We drove to Idaho Falls in this 2007. There's no like GPS, smartphones, nothing.
You
So
like print off your MapQuest before
right,
you
yeah.
leave.
So I don't know how.
Yeah, and they all
I don't even know how we made it.
I
Yeah,
don't
me
even-
neither.
Well, you didn't actually make it.
Well, we didn't. We never found the freaking wedding.
Oh no.
Yeah, we drove all the way to Idaho Falls, and we were like driving around the temple. We asked people. Nobody knew where this wedding was being
You're like, come on, it
hosted
can't be that big.
Right,
Like,
yeah, there's
you
not
should
many
know where
people.
the Johnsons are getting married. you
Yeah.
know?
So anyway, that was 2007. I stayed for a few months. I started working with this other guy that I met through a friend. He offered me a job. I took it. It was a little scary, but I was like, yes, whatever. And so a few months later, I went back to Mexico, and I was there for another year and a half, something like that. And my friend that I was working for called me, and he's like, "Hey, I have another job opening for a cook. Do you want to take it?" And I was like, "Oh wow, yeah, let's do it." So I told him, "Hey," and this is the lesson that I learned, because he's like, I was like, "Just give me a couple of weeks or something like that to figure things out. Quit. I have a job, so I can quit, put my 2 weeks and everything." He's like, "Oh no, homie, you want to have this job? You gotta be here tomorrow."
Wow.
So I did. So I told my family, "Well, I'm going back to Utah," and I booked a ticket. I bought a ticket and I came.
A one-way ticket.
A one-way ticket,
Wow.
yeah. By a one-way ticket, I came, and the rest is just history.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I can say to friends, followers, everybody, get on that plane, get on board, get on that plane, buy that ticket, and do it, because there could be so many other things that you could be doing, but just take the risk.
Yeah, that risk is like you've done that almost like your whole life.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really good way. If you want Heber to do something, give him like 5 seconds to decide, and then that's the best way.
Yeah.
Everyone listening.
They're like, "Hey, do you want to buy a $30 million house? You can you have 3 seconds to talk."
Yeah. And I will, but
They're like, "Yes."
somebody else told me it's not about if you have the money. It's more about if you have access to that money. That matters. So another story similar to this, when I came to the US, is that I have a friend who is very well known in the real estate industry. And he was hosting a dinner with the most influential people in the US. And I was like, I want to be part of that. I want to meet those guys. I want to be their friend, because that's networking at its best. You have like the most
Yeah.
influential people in one place.
Absolutely.
At least it's going to be great for Instagram. So,
My post.
So I texted him. He posted a story about the dinner that he was doing. And I texted him saying, "Hey, can I come?" But the first thing is, like, in order for you to be part of this dinner, you need to be like a high network individual. That's how you say it. Right?
Sure.
That's how you say it.
And that's
sorry.
how you say it now,
Yeah.
everybody. High network individual.
So you basically have to be like a big player. And so I texted him, hey, can I come? I don't know if he knew that I wouldn't be able to do it, because he told me, sure, it's in San Diego tonight. And it's like 2 p.m. So I'm like, oh, shoot.
Utah time, which does get you at least
Yeah,
one more
Utah
hour
time.
California
So
time.
yeah, I had an extra hour. So I called my friend and I picked him up. And then on the way, I called Erica and I said, hey, I'm going to San Diego tonight. She's like, what? Okay. Wait, like, what are you doing? I was like, there's a really cool dinner that I want to go to. And so I have this opportunity to go. So I'm just going. And she's like, cool.
What am I going to say? Like, no, you can't go. Plus, it all sounds fun.
Yeah.
So that day it was like snowing like crazy. So I picked up my friend who doesn't drive,
Who had just barely moved here.
just barely moved here from Mexico, and he doesn't drive. This is the first time that he would be driving a car in the
And
US.
doesn't have a cell phone that works.
He doesn't have a driver's license.
And doesn't have a driver's license.
So I picked him up, and then
That is
I didn't
too
tell
good.
him what we were doing. I just picked him up, and he's like, so what are we doing? I'm like, you'll see. So
Surprise!
It sounds so great in the story, but Heber does that all the time. And I'm like, you gotta tell me what we're doing.
So I called Delta. They didn't pick it up. They didn't pick up. So I made it to the airport, and I told my friend, wait for my call. I might not come back. If I don't come back, just drive back to my house. And he's like, how am I gonna get there? You'll get there. Just follow the freeway. He will get you. He will take you. And once you get to like the Lehigh area,
he
you'll know.
knew like
Yeah.
one road in
Yeah.
Lehigh.
So
I guess I should say his phone worked on Wi-Fi, so he could be on Wi-Fi, so you
Yeah.
could call him at the airport. But other than that, he couldn't.
So later he told me, I was praying so you could not get on that plane. So I went to get a ticket, and the person, he wouldn't sell me a ticket because it was 3 p.m. and the plane was leaving at 3:40. So he's
and
like,
they'd already boarded.
and they were like boarding, and he was like, you don't have time. You literally, you're not gonna make it. I can't let you buy this ticket. And I'm like, listen, let me buy it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. I'll take the risk. It's
Yeah.
my money. It's my credit card.
Yeah.
Just let me buy it. And he's like, okay. So he started putting all the information as fast as he could. He's like, okay, I'll take payment. Once I don't know what he did. I don't know what keyboard key he pressed, that he's like, oh shoot, I don't know what happened, but I deleted everything, so I have to do it again. So I'm like,
All these
That
things happen. Like, I know,
cliffhanger.
right? All these, it's like Victor. It's your friend's answers or prayers being answered.
Yeah,
It's
your
like,
prayers.
Yeah,
But he wasn't praying hard enough.
he wasn't praying hard enough, because I'm like, oh, come on, just do it again. Come on, do it again. And then he did it. At the end, he is like, you know what? If it doesn't work, just come back, look for me, and I'll give you a refund. And I was like, that's fine, great. Where do I go? Go downstairs, all the way straight, take a left, and you'll see your gate. Okay, perfect. So I just grabbed my ticket. I started running like crazy. Like I've never run as fast as that in my life. Anyway, long story short, I made it
He
to
was
the
actually
gate.
in the Olympics now.
Yeah.
That too. Dang.
So he landed the Olympics.
So I made it to the gate. I got on that plane, and it was one of the most amazing dinners in my life. I met some amazing people. I became friends with one of the most amazing people in this world, and we're still friends, and we're still connecting, and we're still exchanging information. We're still helping each other, and it's great. And everything was because I took that risk. I got on that plane, and I made a very, very quick decision.
Well, I think also even beyond that, it was like that's like a place that you can plant a seed because you made some connections and things that you haven't even used yet. Because this was only a couple months ago. And so like some people you have begun those friendships, but other people you just made the connection, and it will grow stronger when you need each other, when you can help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So get on that plane, guys.
I think I remember that San Diego dinner, like, or you posting about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I'm in San Diego. So I remember that part. But I think a lot of the takeaways that I've gotten from our time together today has definitely been, it's just such a good reminder that with high risk comes great reward.
Yeah.
And that a lot of time fear paralyzes so many people in taking action or going for it or getting on the plane last minute, and it's like, but those moments are some of the best moments in life when nothing was planned and then something's presented in front of you and then you just have to make a decision, go for it. And it's like, that's like really living to me.
Yeah.
Is when you do the surprises and just take the risk and take the action. It's like, man, you're living a fun life at that point. And, I'm definitely not advising for you guys all to go out and just make like crazy decisions and uncalculated risks. But I am saying that there's some like really beautiful thing about life when you are playing in that field. And I really, truly believe that your success has definitely come from the high risk that the both of you have been able to take. It seems like it's been in your blood, Heber, and then Erica definitely shifted and became more comfortable with the uncomfort of it, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, my space is a little bit different because I usually do have our kids with me, but a lot of mine is the support role in this. Like Heber is the face and the head of the business, but I am part of the body of it. So it's him going to these places, but he has my emotional support, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think
and your business support, because when we were talking about the podcast, it was very clear, like she's a huge part of the business. And so we don't want to, we don't want to under like you are. And so it's such a pleasure to see how you guys are so in alignment with that as well. And, I think we're coming towards the end of our time together, but I do want to ask you guys this question because I feel like a lot of people could relate who are in business together as couples. What would be some advice that you would give in someone that's either going to enter into that world or perhaps is in that world that could help them build a better relationship, both like romantically and then also in the business?
I kind of touched on this before. I think the first and the most important relationship is your relationship with yourself. So knowing why you want to do any of that, I think doing a business is awesome. It's been super fun. It's really worked out because that is more Heber's personality, is more risk than I have been, but I've learned so much from that. But in some cases, it does help to have someone that's a little bit more grounded, like yours truly, that sometimes we balance each other out. But that doesn't mean that I'm conservative necessarily, but that just means like I do think things out a little bit longer, a little bit more, grounded sometimes. But I think that the first and foremost is understanding and getting in alignment with yourself and loving yourself and appreciating yourself. And that's where that's a really good creative space to have. Because I think you hit a point like it was like when we were 30, we had been married for 5 or 6 years at that point. And you think that you know everything about the other person for the most part. It's like, yeah, we've been down those same roads before. But I realized that after that, it was my own self-discovery of like appreciating things about myself. And then I find out new things about Heber also. And we react a little bit different to those things. And I think that's the secret to having long-term relationships and creating business and everything is the exploration of myself is infinite. I keep growing, I keep doing it, all of that. And when I am curious about myself, I'm curious about other people, and there's always something else to learn. And so like our relationship doesn't end there because we keep going, we keep moving. There's something else.
You keep learning about each other.
Yeah.
And like, that's so beautiful and so powerful. And not only are you doing that, but then because you're shifting, then Heber is like, who is my wife today? Yeah. So that curiosity and that polarity continues on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's been something that's really good. And once I think I kind of launched first into the, I guess I'll call it self-help sphere, but anything is just like understanding who I am and why I was having these, even just emotions or thoughts or things like that, just kind of understanding what was going on. And then Heber just kind of aligned with it in himself. I shared some stuff, but really he found it on his own. And all of a sudden we found that we were listening to the same podcast, which without even trying to. Like one day Heber like sends me the thing from Abraham Hicks, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that. I already told you. and that was a moment though, because I was like, that's so cool. We each came full circle because we were curious into who we were, and each of us like came and found that, and which took us a different step in our relationship too, because the old relationship died. The old who we were when we got married doesn't exist anymore. And it's like, it's something completely different.
And that's okay, because you have to understand that where you are still evolving. It's not like you got married and then
Life
that's
is
it.
over.
Yeah, like it's just like who invented this happily ever after? Because I'm like that just means, and then we never changed ever again. You know, like yeah, so it's fun because I feel like this is a safe space where I can do some experimenting and figuring out about myself, but I have someone there that's holding space for me too about those different things. So it's, I think that has been the most powerful thing in our relationship. But having a business too has been really cool too, because we can co-create. I mean, like we have kids, right? We create these kids, we create that family environment, but we take that to another level too. And we're projecting that to the world. And it's like, hey, do you guys like this? Oh, you hated that. Okay, we're gonna do that again, you know, or things like that. So I think that's been really cool for our relationship too, is co-creating in a different space too,
So awesome.
launching it out.
Yeah. Amen.
Have you guys heard of Esther Perel?
I think I have.
She's this genius on relationships. She's probably one of the best people I've ever heard and learned from about relationship. And exactly what you guys just said, she touches on all the time. And she's worked with couples for years, like a master in this. Okay. And she says you're going to have multiple relationships throughout your lifetime. And whether it's with one person or a few, that's what is going to change.
Yeah.
And she talks about that marriage or that relationship dying, and then you recreate a new one, right? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you guys are the perfect example of what she's talking about.
Well,
right?
and it's interesting because I think we did get to a point where, and we've gotten to before, where it's like, okay, well, I think we've explored everything on this level. What do we do next? Like we're curious, and I mean, it's on either business or personally or whatever as a family. And then that part dies and then we bring something else in, and it's not bad. Like death isn't bad. Death is just a door into the next phase. I feel like, yeah, that's really cool. That's right. Yeah.
I love it. You guys, this has been wonderful. I've taken so much away from this, and I know our listeners will too. And I want to appreciate you for being here and sharing your story. And I know that many people are also inspired by this. And like, if you're feeling that you're on the edge of taking action into something that you really want to do and create and go for it, like, hopefully this will just get you to that next step, you know, and take your first step or take your last step into it. But there's nothing more exciting to create like a little world within this world, and to help serve the community around you. The last thing I will want to point out is that was like a big takeaway, and maybe I'll ask a question around that too, is when you really shifted from doing all these things, because I think this is great advice to any entrepreneurs or people in business, is sometimes it's like, oh, I want to have a lot of buckets, or I want to put my hand into all these things. And it seemed like it really made a change when you guys just refocused and it was on the one thing. And I know that COVID had a lot to do with that, but also how did you discover what the one thing was, aside from kind of being like naturally getting there, like getting the old shoe that you forgot about in the closet, but what led you to that moment of like clarity, like this is it?
I think, I don't know, but in that term, I think it's okay. You don't know.
You're just saying that now. It's okay if you don't know.
But I think it was something that we also saw as a problem within within our own little community where it is hard to have a good meal every day. It's hard to spend a lot of time in the kitchen just to cook for one person, for one family.
Me.
And so every single meal subscription that we tried, we were not impressed with. So we're like, let's
create it.
Let's create it. Yeah, let's do it. And I think that's how.
And I think part of it too is that we also wanted to create connections with people, and so that's like food is the best way. I feel like to be like people know Heber on a different way because you try his food, so you know something. He created that, right? You know something about him almost. And then, but on the other end, we get to know other people. We know what their likes are. We know sometimes what their schedule is and different things like that. But it's created a really cool community of people that we never would have even met, especially when that was like when we were just focusing on these caterings. We met the front door girl, or or like whoever was booking the caterings. We met that person, but there was no network there. And so I think that was part of it, is just realizing that you build a great business on a lot of different backs. On a lot of people are upholding your business rather than we're just depending on this one giant company that we're serving. So it's been really good that way.
And I think also because we were at a point where we were looking for new friends. And so, and that's
that's why I said like our business and our personal lives are married.
Yeah. And how we, connected with you, because we have other friends that they were clients, and then at some point we're like, hey, you guys want to come over for dinner? Do you guys, you look cool. So
I love it so much.
And that's how.
And I think, there's so much beauty about it. It's like, not only are you providing something that's needed and wanted, but you are like really integrating into just that relationship in the life of somebody. And that's really cool because it's all about connections and relationships, right? Like everyone needs love and connection. And so what a beautiful story. Thanks again for sharing it with us. By the way, there's a great book if you are in the middle of like trying to figure out where to focus on and what bucket to choose. That's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And he is a huge guru in real estate, but it will apply to anyone in business. So it just reminded me of that. And to finish off, so I buy your meals. I know at least 15 people, I think, that buy your meals. And you guys, they are so good. And I am going more into a healthy route, and like, it's just a choice in my life that I want to eat healthier things. I want to be aware what I put into my body, aside from the pizza I had last night, which is fine. And we're not going to judge.
We weren't even going to bring it up.
Yeah.
We knew.
But, making that conscious, healthy choice. And that's what I love about your meals, that it tastes really good. I know that what I'm putting into my body is healthy for me. It's helped change my lifestyle. Like, because I was eating out a lot too. And that wasn't like it. And so, I can go on and on about how this just like plugged right into the lifestyle and what I wanted and how healthy it is and how good they taste. I know that some of the listeners will probably want to try it out. So where do they go to get, a subscription and enroll into this?
Yeah, chefheber.com. And we have different plans.
You can do you can go on Instagram too if you want to connect.
Yeah, at Chef Heber on Instagram. And we post a lot of updates, videos.
You guys, they deliver it to your house. Like, how
and if
easier?
And if you're in area, you let us into your house.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll unlock it from my phone.
Creepy people.
Yeah.
No, I trust you guys.
But we want to help people. We want to make it affordable. So
Currently, we still are just in Utah, but
Yeah.
looking at expansion possibilities and seeing where else to next.
Yeah, and I have listeners from out of state. I have a network nationwide, and so I'm sure there's going to be people who are like, "Oh, what
Just
is
invite
this?"
us over because we'll cook for you.
We'll come over.
And I was
But
gonna say,
it
we
will
need a
come.
vacation.
Yeah.
Will come your
We've been
way.
figuring, yeah, that's right. We always need a really good excuse for a business trip. So if you give us motivate us, people, yeah. We'll do it. We'll
I
cook for you.
love it.
we're just looking for a good kitchen.
I
to
know.
cook
It's
in.
like if you live near the Florida Keys, preferably.
I love it.
Or anywhere the West Coast.
Anywhere by the ocean.
Yeah, so we'll cook for you.
It's just the food, it just cooks better. It doesn't, but it's a great excuse.
But thank you, Nuria. This is
Yeah,
so fun.
thanks so
Yeah,
much, you
it's great.
guys. So check them out, chefheber.com, and try it out, you guys. It has changed my life for the better. So, and who wouldn't want to just follow people like these two that are so incredible. So thanks for listening, everyone. Have a healthy day and hope you have a wonderful week.
Ciao.